Good morning and happy Saturday. Hope you guys are having a great day. I am fighting the cats. I just wanted to sit out here. And enjoy a cup of coffee and watch the pond, lagoon, marshy area, swamp. I don't know. That over there. And instead, I have two cats who have been fed, who have caught a mouse this morning already, who would love to sit on my lap. And they are meddy because it is wet out here. So great. Okay, so those are my struggles. I think I need to go to bed and have a do-over today because I just walked a little over 2 miles and finished my trail talk and went to edit it, and I never turned the microphone on. Like, I can't even tell you how irritating it was because it was a good one. Yes, it was. It was a good trail talk. We talked a little bit about yesterday, and then we talked about, well, I don't even want to tell you because you're going to be sad you missed it. Cup was a gift. It was purchased at Walmart a few years ago. And I didn't stir my coffee before I came out here. Yeah. So, yeah, that's a thing. Okay. Oh, let's pretend that the part of the morning that I would like to forget didn't happen. And let's have coffee chats with Tamara. I haven't come up with a fun name. These cats are wild. These are wild cats. Jill caught a bunny rabbit yesterday and ate it for dinner. They are wild hunter cats, and Jack is on top of the swing set. Yep. For those of you who aren't cat people, I'm not really. They're for Charlotte, my daughter, and they are excellent hunters, which is great because if you're new here, we live in the country. Yes, we do. And they are essential workers. Oh, anyway, I can't get my brain straight. I had it straight for 30 minutes and I lost it all. I just can't get over that. I just can't. It's very frustrating. Okay, let me sip one more sip of coffee. Fogged up my glasses. It was very misty this morning, similar to yesterday morning, except there was a huge cloud mass blocking the rise of the sun. And so we didn't miss anything. We didn't miss anything with the sunrise this morning. So just a big gray cloud, which is kind of indicative of how my day has started. So I'm here. I had a really nice day yesterday, Friday. I woke up and walked with you guys. You saw that. And we talked about a few things. First, we talked about really nothing. And then we talked about food. And then we talked about what causes our insecurities to surface. And so this morning, I thought we'd build on that a little bit. And how do we handle that? Excuse me. Very unladylike. So I thought we would discuss that. And what I thought we would discuss is how to handle criticism. We'll talk about my day later. You guys don't really care about my day. Well, maybe you do. I shouldn't say that. But I want to talk about handling criticism because, these are really just my recorded therapy sessions that you guys can watch for your own viewing pleasure. And I talked yesterday about thinking about why I got my feathers so ruffled when receiving criticism. And then that made me think about how do I receive criticism and how do I view it and why was I so upset? And the reason why my feathers were so ruffled is because the critique or the criticism brought to the surface some of the same things that I asked myself before I made the decision. And so then it made me think that maybe the choice that I made was wrong and maybe my viewpoint needed to be critiqued or altered. So I don't feel that way now because of working through some of the things on this flow chart that I came up with based on the opinion of highly trained professionals. So what I thought we would do is we would walk through how to handle criticism and ask ourselves a few questions. So if you'd like to, go ahead and take a moment to get yourself a paper and pen. If you feel like this is a topic that you could use some improvement in, I'm not saying that, but maybe we all could. Maybe we all could. I think too, no, Jack. No. He's very, very curious. He's also very muddy. Hello, kitty. Hello, kitty. No. Rejected. Yes. Go chase your sister. Oh, so I also know where that mouth has been. Okay, anyway, I have to think about that every time these cats come near. I'm like, you guys are gross. Oh, they just want to be loved. They really do. They also want to eat things. No. Okay, so back to criticism. This talk is thrilling so far. How to handle criticism. We're going to start off with some questions, and then based on the response, we're going to move to either the next question or move on. Okay, so we're going to go through the flow chart with the yeses, because we're going to assume that all criticism that we receive comes from a good place. It does not, and so we'll learn how to deal with that later in this talk. But the first thing is how to handle criticism. The first question is, was the criticism well intended? Does the person have a good intention? Are they looking out for your best interest? Did it come from a good place? If the answer is yes, we'll talk about the no's in a minute. Let's assume the answer is yes. Then we need to ask ourselves, do we care about this person's opinion? If the answer is yes, then we move on to the next question. Is their criticism constructive? Because not all criticism has value, even from people whose opinion we value and who are well-intended. It's not always a criticism that is meant to help us to improve ourselves. So maybe it's constructive, maybe it's coming from a good place, and maybe we care about what the person says. Our next question is, do we agree? And so this is an interesting one because we're not going to agree with everybody. And sometimes criticism is based on personal opinion and the experiences that have molded that person. But I thought about people that we love and whose opinions we care about. And when we receive criticism from them, sometimes it involves us doing a little bit of research. We need to think about the principles that guided the person into the opinion that they have, the principles that may be behind the criticism or the counsel that they provided. And so when we think about those things, we need to say, do the principles that support their criticism, are those principles I stand behind? Are they principles or values that I have in my life, or standards for the person that I want to be? Because if the person's criticism or counsel, I like counsel if it's coming from a well-intended person, if it lines up with the standards, the principles, and values that we have in our life, then it is criticism that we, or counsel, that we could apply to help us to, what is that? There's a very odd waterfowl in my pond. Not going there. I'm not. Shiny things will not distract me today, although they already have, but only for a little. Okay, so then we can say, yeah, I can agree with their counsel. And then at that point, we have the opportunity to find a way to apply it, or a strategy to incorporate the counsel or the adjustment into our life and work on improving ourselves. That's the ideal scenario. That would be the ideal situation, that the counsel, critique, criticism would come from a well-intended individual whose opinion we care about in a constructive way. And we could agree with it and the principles and the standards and the values that support their criticism. And then we can apply it and work on improving it. That's the ideal situation. And that helps us to achieve a level of personal growth and emotional maturity. I like that word because it's something I'm working on. Sometimes, do you ever feel like you have an 8-year-old, like deep down inside of you, who really just wants, maybe not even an 8-year-old, maybe some of us have like a 2 or 3-year-old. Deep down inside of us, who, when confronted with adversity in life, just wants to throw ourselves on the floor, stomp our feet, and cry until we get what we want. I'm struggling with that sometimes. I'm struggling with that, and I'm trying to work really hard on identifying the why behind what I do and what motivates my actions. And so that's where these talks are kind of coming from, is it's just an analyzation, an analyzing of the actions and courses that I've taken, the choices I've made in my life in my past, and trying to identify the reasons behind them. So, okay, now, life is not ideal. And not all criticism is going to allow you to flow through this chart and to complete it with the end result being you're working on bettering yourself, because not all criticisms meet this criteria. So let's assume that as we work through these, the answer to some of these questions is no. And then what should be our strategy in our response to the criticism? There's a car going by my road. Hello, car. Okay, so how to handle criticism. And first question was it well intended? If the answer is no, don't waste your time. Don't bother is actually what I wrote. Don't bother. If it did not come from a well-intended individual and it was just a critical person, a cranky person, a negative Nelly, don't bother. You are good enough. You are good enough. You do not need to improve based on their bad intentions. Okay, maybe we're going to move on. Our answer to that question was yes. The next one is, do I care about their opinion? Okay. Some who are viewing this video may be mature enough to realize that they do not need to have everybody have a good opinion of them. Some of us are still learning that. So I started thinking about this one, and this is where I wish that I knew what I said in this morning, because I want to talk about this. I have openly shared that I am a perfectionist, and we have talked in, maybe it was a Window Wisdom with Tamara, I believe it was, about my lifelong battle with obesity and how, for myself, feeling like that aspect of my life, my physical appearance, that's really what it boiled down to, because I didn't care a snit about my health when I was 12. That wasn't what it was. It was that I didn't look like all the other girls. Let's just be honest about that. So I was a perfectionist then. I don't know why. I think it really came from knowing that I was different than the rest of the people around me, and that about me was something that made me different. And because of that, noticing that difference, it made me feel like I wasn't as good as all the other girls. And that's why maybe I wasn't chosen for dodgeball or kickball, or maybe that's why I was the first person that the dodgeball was thrown at, because I couldn't run as fast as the other kids. And that's why I was the object of teasing and giggles and ridicule in elementary school and junior high. And apparently those things are still wounds that I have had to acknowledge have created scars that have followed me into my adulthood, where I am trying to embrace the scars and heal any sensitivity that they still cause. Yeah. So, do you care about their opinion? As a perfectionist, I feel like everybody has to have a good opinion of me. I'm struggling with that. And I think it's because if everything else that I do and the choices that I make are perfect, it not only validates the choice, but it would also help them to overlook the imperfection or perceived imperfection that I felt my parents had. That was my coping strategy. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I am saying that that is how I felt, and that those feelings were signaling something else deep inside of me. And so I'm working hard on realizing that the opinions of other people do not validate or give worth to my life. There are those whose opinions matter. There are. But there are others who, regardless of what you do or what choices you make, you will never win over their favorite opinion. And that is not a deficit on your part. And I'm learning that. And so, anyway, maybe we'll talk more about that later. The next question, so maybe you do care about their opinion in this flow chart. And so we've made it that far. And now you need to ask yourself, is their opinion constructive? So even a well-intended person whose opinion you cared about or care about, they can provide criticism or critique of your choices or your life that is not necessarily constructive. It's happened to me. And I've allowed that opinion about a choice that I've made, or that critique about a choice that I've made, even from somebody I love whose opinion I do value. I felt like their critique of my choice was not constructive. And so because of that, and their criticism was just based on their own personal opinion of a particular subject. And so because of that, I was able to kind of move on. Now they still made me question my choice, because I thought about the next question. Do I agree? Do I agree? If it's not constructive, the flow chart says, don't bother. Don't bother. You're good enough. Okay. The next one is, do you agree? So even those who are well-intended, whose opinion you care about, and whose advice is constructive, it does not mean you have to agree with it. And that goes back to what I said earlier when all the answers were yes, is that you can hold their criticism up to the values, standards, morals, and principles you have in your life. And either you may see an area where you could elevate your values, morals, standards, and principles and apply the counsel, or you may realize that their advice does not meet your same standards and you don't agree. And that's okay. You can still have a well-intended person whose opinion you care about, who provides constructive criticism, and you can choose not to agree with it. And if that's the case, then you can tell yourself, you know what, I appreciate your opinion. And then tell yourself, but I can't please everybody. You can't. And that is something I am working on. That goes back to wanting to be a perfectionist and wanting everybody to like me, because if everybody likes me, then they won't realize what's wrong with me. And so because of that in life, I have masked my own values. I'm not saying recently, I'm looking back at my youth and teenage years. I made choices based on their values and their principles and their opinions and their morals. And I wasn't strong enough to stand up for the things that I valued. And that's something we learn. I think that's a learning thing for a lot of people. We don't want to continue that behavior our entire life. We don't. And it was because I wanted people to like me. And so I adjusted my behaviors based on their opinions, even if they were not well intended. And even if I truly should not have cared what their opinion of me was, because I wanted them to like me. Because if they liked me, then that helped me to feel like what I thought was wrong with me was not really wrong with me. I don't know if that's making sense, but this is, again, my personal therapy session, so I don't know. Okay, the next one is, that's it. That's really it. That's really it. If you do agree, then you need to work on improving, if you agree with their opinion. Otherwise, the two takeaways are, don't bother, you're good enough, or realize you can't please everyone. So that brings me to the quote that I found regarding criticism. And it is, take criticism seriously, but not personally. If there is truth or merit in it, try to learn from it. Otherwise, let it roll right off of you. So if you struggle with accepting criticism or finding its worth or value in your life, I hope you took some notes today. And I hope you stop and think before getting your feathers ruffled or just blindly applying advice, criticism, or counsel in your life. Make sure to analyze the values, morals, principles, and standards that the person has who's providing the counsel and advice. And if they match yours, find a way to accept the counsel, the criticism, and learn from it. If the person is just being a negative Nelly, remember, you're good enough. You can't please everyone, and let it roll off. Yep, let it roll off. So that's what I've got. I had a goal today to get up and walk, and I achieved that. Not as far as I wanted, because when I realized my trail talk had no volume, had no, I was talking, but you couldn't hear me, I was done. I was just done. I was like, I'm going to go in and have a cup of coffee, and I'm going to sit down, and I'm going to enjoy nature, and I'm going to refocus. I'm going to rise above. I'm going to rise up, and I'm going to rise and shine, because she believed she could, so she did. That's how I read it. How do you guys read it? I think some people say she believed she could, so she did. I like she believed she could, so she did. That's my take on it. Some days it's the other way. Oh. And remember, you've got goals. Happy Saturday.